Hey everybody, so this is going to be sort of the next step with GitHub. So previously we had a file, it was a file that I created that everybody shared and updated, okay? And a lot of times that's kind of how GitHub works, where you sort of work with a group of people. This time though, we're just going to make, each student's going to make a repository to store their own work. So they're not really sharing it with other people. You can if you want. That's not really the point of this particular exercise. It's just how to make your own repository, how to store your own files in the repository. So what we're going to do is the first step is you got to log into your GitHub account by going to github.com. And what we're going to do is start, this should be your sort of home page here. You want to click where it says New Repository, okay? Repositories, remember, are just like a folder to store things like files. So I'm going to make a new repository. Make sure you're logged in as you. Obviously, you don't want to make a repository for somebody else. And for now, just put your name on it. Like, I'm just going to put my name on it, and then dash or hyphen BMD105. Okay? So I don't already have a folder with that name or a repository, so I get a little check mark here. This is a description. It's optional, it's not required. Basically, you can describe, what the repository holds. So the idea is like these are projects. So if this was like a project for a group, I might describe what the project is, If I'm going to store a bunch of files here, maybe I'm going to say this repository stores projects created in BMD105, okay? That just describes what it does so that if anyone clones your folder or looks at your folder, they just kind of get a little description. When it says public or private, by default, all GitHub accounts are public. If you want to make something private, which means other people can't view what's inside of it, you actually have to pay GitHub money for that. It's not a free, option. So, just keep in mind that with this project, with this lab, anything you put into your GitHub is public, and other people have the ability to view that, okay? So don't put anything that's, you wouldn't, want to make public, basically. So don't put any sensitive information, photographs that, you don't want to be public or anything like that. This we don't have to worry about for now, and then we're going to click on Create Repository. Alright, so it's making a repository. This is a link to your repository if you want to give it to somebody else. We're not going to worry about that right now. Everything seems good. I'm going to click up here. Currently, my repository is empty. It's just a folder. So I want to add stuff to that folder. Okay. So what we're going to do is use the Github Desktop App. And I'm going to clone the repository I just made. And here's a sample file, here's a PSD file. Let's pretend this is like your Photoshop project. I'm going to clone the folder from GitHub here, put it on my desktop, kind of like we did in the first one, put it in, and then update the changes, send it back, and it's going to be uploaded to my repository online. So I need to log into the GitHub Desktop App. Make sure you're logged in as you, because remember, especially if you haven't set up your own personal accounts, that people share these accounts, and so make sure you're logged in as yourself. I'm going to go under GitHub. I went under Preferences. I click where it says Account, and then you can just sign in. This is your GitHub username and password, just like you would log into the GitHub github.com. Alright. So what we're going to do is clone the repository I just made online. Okay, and the way that we would do that is the user interface is a little different depending on which version of GitHub you're using. This is the most recent, so please make sure you have the most recent. Otherwise, the user interface is a little different. But basically, you would go under, right here, there's an option that actually says Clone Repository. If that's not an option to you, if this interface looks different, you should have ability to go under the, where it says File, and then choose the option that says Clone Repository. What the clone does is it makes a copy of the repository online and is going to put it on my computer right here. So I'm going to hit Clone. And if you're signed in, it should give you a list of every single repository you currently have. Okay, I actually have multiple because I deal with multiple classes. You guys will probably only have the one that you just created, unless you're a CS student. And so this is the one I'm cloning, the one we just made. And then this is where it's going to go on your computer. So I would suggest just making sure you set it up for the desktop. I just think that's the easiest place for you guys to do it. Hit clone. All right. So here's the folder. What you guys are going to do is I want you guys to take your Photoshop project, put it into the repository. Okay. That would count as a change. Now, before we physically, we made actual changes to a text file. This time it's just the act of adding the file to the repository is the change, okay? So if I go back to the GitHub Desktop app, it says changes. It shows me that I've just added a file. That's what this green plus means. And so, I am basically just gonna add a little, this is a commit, meaning that I wanna save this and push it back to the main GitHub source. So just like with the first lab, I need to give a commit and a commit sort of description. So I might say, uploading PS project. I am uploading the Photoshop assignment to GitHub. I'm going to hit commit to master. And then publish. Publish is the same as push. Give it a second, depending on the size of the file. Okay? If you want to check to see whether it worked, go back to your GitHub Online and you might have to refresh, and then there you go. So that is the file I just pushed from my desktop here. Okay, so what you guys are going to do is just take, you're going to create a repository. You're going to use the GitHub Desktop app to clone the repository on your local computer. You're going to add the file to that folder, and then you're going to commit it, which means to save the change, and then push it to send it back to GitHub. Okay?